Intensity. Pfeiffer, Gross, Gilman, Forstadt, and Tiller. Abridged and reduced by Rob Alba. Embracing gifted intensity. One facet of gifted people are their overexcitabilities. Overexcitabilities are certain things which are far more intense to gifted people than to the average person. It is information they absorb without trying. They can't avoid it. They are affected much more intensely by them, and they can't turn it off. Overexcited senses experience more of the world around them, and they experience it faster than others. They are responding to what is going on inside and outside equally strongly. Overexcited people are often misunderstood, since they sense things so differently from around them. What is normal? In math, normal means average or typical or most common. In life, normal means something very different, something healthy. In life, normal means that it is working the best that it can. So what happens? The gifted sense things differently than normal and are often seen as abnormal. Sadly, abnormal is treated as bad or unacceptable, which they can feel intensely. They start to feel that they are bad, which they are certainly not. In life, normal means healthy. Healthy means operating at an organism's highest potential. And normal health may not be common or typical. For example, normally, most of the patients in a hospital are suffering from something. Here, people suffering might be considered normal. But suffering is not normal for people. A change in perspective. Dabrowski's theory. Dabrowski believed that average health is actually less than the healthy norm. To him, an average person was underdeveloped. To him, anyone who could not run a marathon had fallen short of their potential. To him, the intellect of anyone who could not grasp the most complex theories was lacking. To him, anyone who could not empathize effortlessly with everyone was stunted emotionally. A gifted child cannot be made normal or made to fit in, because making them normal means making them less healthy, making them less gifted, because making them normal means making them of who they can become. Human growth is often seen as a line, infancy to childhood, to adolescence, to adulthood, to old age. Dabrowski saw it entirely differently. He saw it as a struggle between developmental potential, the best we can possibly become, and multi-levelness, the difference between how good we are and how good we want to be. Dabrowski believed that development does not occur along a timeline, but according to a person's experiences and what they find to be important. Experiences are modified by a person's sensitivities, and particularly by their overexcitabilities. He divided these overexcitabilities into sensual, psychomotor, emotional, intellectual, and imaginational. Sensually overexcitable people experience the five senses more fully and deeply than average people do. Those with psychomotor overexcitability feel an intense connection with physical movement. Emotionally overexcitable people may find themselves deeply empathizing with everyone around them, and subject to great bursts of emotion themselves. Intellectually excitable people feel compelled to dig into subjects to discover why and how things happen. Imaginationally overexcitable people may often live deep in make-believe. They can realize whole, fully fleshed-out worlds in their minds. Dabrowski believed that how important a thing was to a person depended on what stage of development they were in. He divided these stages into 5 levels. Level 1, primary integration, where you see yourself as the most important thing. You see yourself as perfect and everyone else is flawed. You have a single view of how things should be. Level 2, unilevel disintegration, where you see yourself in the context of society. This level comes after an authority is challenged and found lacking, but you don't know what to replace it with. It is a very difficult time, especially for adolescents. Level 3, spontaneous multi-level disintegration, where you see a strong difference in what is and what will be. This is the point where facing internal strife can forge a strong, healthy person. Level 4. Organized multi-level disintegration, where a person makes the choice to live solely for what ought to be, living the highest sense of empathy and responsibility. Level 5. Secondary integration. This is where the notions of material comfort are completely discarded and you live solely for the good of humanity. Jesus and Buddha live here. Dabrowski's theory is important to us because it fits neatly with the traits we find in gifted people. Gifted people are gifted for life. Dabrowski's theory doesn't rely on age, which lets it stay relevant through the gifted person's lifetime. Why is this important to know? Because overexcitability is not something bad. It is not something to treat or cure. Because overexcitabilities are the key to growth. They allow people to move from one level to the next. And because it is essential to cherish their overexcitabilities, suppress them. How to cope with overexcitability. None of the overexcitabilities is easy to live with. Many are only distinguishable from disorders by trained professionals. The first thing to know is that a qualified counselor trained in both Dabrowski's theory and gifted education will greatly ease the way. Here are some signs of, suggestions for, coping with overexcitabilities. Psychomotor intensity. Signs of a psychomotor overexcitability are that the person is always talking fast, always moving, always hyper, and possibly very competitive. When they're upset, they can't stop talking, and they act without thinking about consequences, and they may act out. To care for them, notice and verbally support their energy. Try not to keep them from moving for too long. Plan for movement to be included. Teach relaxation and calming as a choice and not as a punishment. Find places their energy can be productive and support them when they find appropriate uses for it. Sensual intensity is marked by a strong reaction to visual, scent, taste, texture, sound, or feelings that they can get from any kind of beauty or art. When stressed, they may overeat, self-gratify or harm, or seek to be the center of attention. To care for them, notice and verbally agree with their positive and negative reactions to their own experiences. Create places where they can limit sensory input. Create opportunities to explore beauty as they see it. Help them to find comfort for their bodies, from their own clothes to their environment. Understand that attachment to specific textures, sights, sounds, scents, or tastes may last for a long time. Intellectual intensity shows through unrelenting curiosity, a tendency to lose themselves in study or books, the ability to watch things forever, to remember what they saw with tons of detail, and to plan amazingly. These are the ones we usually call gifted, the ones who seem to absorb knowledge from the air around them. To care for them, notice and verbally support all kinds of learning. Make their gift a valuable thing about them. Recognize that truth is always going to be a big deal for them, something that they need to be able to find at every age. Accept that their sleep pattern will be unique. Help them come up with their own questions and to their answers. Encourage them to have peers of any age. Remind them to live in the body as well as the mind. Imaginational intensity. You will know these by their strong use of metaphor and imagery, by the whole world spring up around and inside them, and by the way they see everything as having life in it. When they feel threatened, they may retreat to fantasy worlds where they are safe and powerful. They may mix truth and make-believe and not be aware that it matters, though they usually know one from the other. They cannot cope with boredom. To care for them, notice and verbally support how they add to normal, boring worlds, and how imagination solves the biggest problems. Become involved in their stories. Ask them to share with you. Have them make their stories come to life through design and art. Help them see the line between real and make-believe. Look for ways to involve others in the fantasy and record the inventions. Emotional intensity is the most broad, complex, deep overexcitability. It shows up in how passionately the person feels things in herself or in others. She might suddenly explode into tears if in the company of someone sad or a small thing goes wrong. She might show the deepest love and affection for strangers or fire anger at an insult. She may feel all of these things at once. To care for them, notice and verbally prove to them how that Their feelings are valid. That tears are not cause for shame, and sharing emotion is a good thing. Teach them that not showing emotion is okay for people too, and learning how to describe how they feel will help others understand them. Help them foresee emotional moments coming and prepare for them. Provide things that have a high feel-good factor like helping in community-centered care. The trouble with overexcitabilities. Disruption caused by high energy levels and intense emotions gifted people experience may make you want to scream. It's exhausting at their pace because they are gifted. Families raising gifted members and teachers teaching gifted students may see the gifted as a threat to the peace and sanity and an unreasonable drain on the very little energy reserves they have left. They may be tempted to try to normalize the student. Sit down, be quiet, eyes on me, stop crying about nothing, pay attention. But that is the worst thing that we can do. Overexcitabilities are benefits that they come with. They are gifts that need to be nurtured, even though it might seem like an insurmountable pain. To do right by these people, we must learn how to allow them to use their gift for everyone's benefit. Allowances have to be made, and flexibility is an all-time premium. These overexcitabilities will be with these people for life. It is vital to teach them early that these are good parts of themselves, tools to allow them to create beautiful and important. Dabrowski's levels and disintegration. Dabrowski saw the process of disintegration as being the point where growth was possible. Once faced with a traumatic experience, a person can respond in many ways. In the first two stages, there is no means to better ourselves. If our image of our world, our place in it, or our image of ourselves becomes shattered, and we lack the tension to want to become a better person, we go back to old habits and behaviors. But in the third stage, once faced with a traumatic experience and shattered image, we have the opportunity to make something new out of the pieces. We see that who we were was inadequate compared to who we can and want to be. Dabrowski called it positive disintegration, basically meaning the point where you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and make yourself into a better person because of what you went through. Most of us will not get beyond the third stage. Most of us will fluctuate between the first three, if we're lucky. The combination of overexcitabilities and developmental levels combine to let us grow and become fulfilled people. The combination of overexcitabilities and developmental levels, and occasionally the third factor. The third factor is not present in everyone. It represents an unpredictable and completely human ability to go beyond our other gifts and our developmental levels, to be self-aware enough to choose what we should keep and what we should have to grow healthy. Support for all three factors is essential for healthy growth. Those who have it tend to become self-sufficient, creative, productive, healthy, and happy people.